Okay, we're going to talk about what are called consecutive integers. Now, before we talk about this topic, we got to make sure you understand what these two words separately mean. So, consecutive means one right after another. So, in other words, if I asked you for consecutive numbers, 2 and 3 are consecutive numbers, a -4 and a -5 are consecutive numbers, 8 and 9 are consecutive numbers. That's what we mean by the word consecutive. Now, integers are just numbers that aren't fractions or decimals. So they could be negative, like a -4. They could be positive, like 5. They're just not going to be a fraction or a decimal. Now let's take a look at example 1. It says, find 3 consecutive integers such that the sum, so in other words, when we add them together, of the first and the third one is 146. Now before I start this, I'm going to underline some key words here. So we want 3 consecutive, so we want 3 numbers in a row, such that when I add them up, because it says sum of the first one and the third one is, remember is means equal. Now what I'm going to do is, whenever you have these consecutive integer problems, you got to set up the problem. You have to set up the problem. So what I mean by that is this. So I'm going to let n be my first consecutive integer, and I'm going to abbreviate this. So, and let me back up a little bit. So 3 consecutive integers might be 2, 3, and 4. It might be 12, 13, and 14. It might be 20, 21, 22, something like that. Those would be consecutive integers. And what we want to do is add the first one and the third one so that the first one and the third one add up to 146. So I'm going to let n be my first consecutive number. All right, whatever that may be. Now, how would I get the next number right after that? Well, if I asked you what's the number right after 2, you'd say 3, right? You'd add 1 to 2. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to add 1 to n. That would give me my second consecutive integer. So n's my first one. It makes sense that n plus 1 would be my next one. What would be my third one? Well, n plus 2 would be my third consecutive integer. So let's just kind of take a look at this. So n plus 1, n plus 2. Suppose n was 5, just for sake of an example. Suppose n was 5. Well, what would my consecutive integers be? Well, 5, and then 5 plus 1, 6, and then 5 plus 2, 7. So it'd be 5, 6, and 7. Now that's probably not going to work here in this problem. We got to solve this problem. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to the problem. It says, such that the sum of the first one and the third one. Well, here's my first one, here's my third one. We're going to add those two together. So I'm going to take n plus the third one, which is n plus 2, and it says is, which means equal, 146. Now I'm going to solve it. Let's see, on the left side I can simplify that. N plus n is 2n plus 2 equals 146. Alright, let's solve it. They're adding 2, I'll subtract 2. These cancel, so 2n is equal to 144. Now divide by 2, and n is equal to 72. So my first consecutive integer, so n is 72. Now it says, now I'm going to go back to the problem. What's it asking me to find? Well, it wants you to find the 3 numbers now. So the first one is 72. What would be my next one? What would be my next one? Well, I take 72 and I'd add 1. So it'd be 73. And then take 72 and add 2, it'd be 74. So my 3 consecutive integers are 72, 73, and 74. And I bet when you add the first one and the third one, they would add up to 146. Now, you might say that's a lot of work to be able to try to figure this out. And you know what? You probably could use trial and error on it. I'm not going to have you use trial and error, but you know what? It'd take a long time to, just try to guess and check on this. This is a little bit more organized method. It's a faster method once you get used to it. Let's take a look at one more example. Now in this one it says find 3 consecutive integers such that. Now before I go on, I'm going to set this problem up. So I'm going to let n be my first consecutive integer. What would give me my second consecutive integer? Well, I'd take n and I'd add 1 to it. That would be my second consecutive integer. And then to get my third one, I'd add 2 to n. That'd be my third consecutive integer. Now what are we going to do with these? Find 3 consecutive integers such that twice the sum. So I'm going to add the first 2 integers. And I'm going to take twice that. So I'm going to add n plus the n plus 1. And I'm going to take twice whatever that total is. I'm going to take twice that sum. So it's in parentheses. So I'm going to take twice the sum of the first 2, which is n plus 1, double that, or take it times 2, is, equal sign, 2 less than 3 times the third. Now there's a lot of information in that part of it. Is 2 less, so I'm going to take 2 away from whatever 3 times the third integer is, which is n plus 2. Now I need to simplify this and solve it. Now before we do this, let's just see if this makes sense. Find 3 consecutive integers such that twice, right here, twice the sum of the first 2, n plus 1, whatever that answer is, you're going to take it times 2, that's why I need it in parentheses, is 2 less than 3 times the third one. Alright, let's simplify. Now here, let's see, n plus n is 2n plus 1 is really what I have in parentheses there. Now I'm going to distribute the 2. So 2 times 2n is 4n, plus 2 times 1 is 2, equals, let's see, 3 times n is 3n, plus 3 times 2 is 6, minus the 2, right? Continue simplifying. 4n plus 2 equals 3n, and 6 minus 2 is a positive 4. Right, now I'm going to go up above here and I'm going to put it in different colors so this doesn't mix together. So what I have is 4n plus 2 equals 3n plus 4. Now I'm going to pick on the small one. I'm going to pick on the small variable, which is 3n. What could I add or subtract to 3n to cancel it? Well, subtract 3n. And on the left side now I have 1n, or just n, plus 2 equals 4. Right, they're adding 2, subtract 2, so n equals 2. So my first consecutive integer is 2. What would be my next one? Well, add 1 to 2. So my next one would be 3. My next one would be 4. So my 3 consecutive integers are 2, 3, and 4. That is my answer. Now if you wanted to check it, you'd go back to the problem. You'd add the first 2 of them, which would be these, and you'd double that, and you'd see if that is equal to 2 less than 3 times the third one. And I don't have enough room to check that, but it would check. So this section is called consecutive integers, and it's really, really important that to start with you set the problem up by labeling or designating what your integers are.